My goodness. Aisha Hines took us straight to church with this special episode of Underground, so stay right here with us.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin. Go down, Moses.
I wish I was a good singer. Right. Wait, hold on. Let me get my baritone.
No. She tried, though.
I tried. I felt like it was only appropriate to start the show with Moses. Guys, this is Lena is out today, but Franceli's here holding you down. You can hang out with me and all things social media at Celly Hangout and the lovely ladies.
Hey guys, Elayna here. You can follow me on all social platforms at hey_it's_lay.
And I'm Lynneisha, guys, and you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Lynneisha_33.
Woo! Man.
This was a lot.
This was a lot.
It's I haven't had enough time to process. I know that we got it a little late because we're on the West Coast, so some people may have.
Some people are watching it right now because the West Coast went live at 8. Mm-hmm. So, folks, the West Coast is just watching it, but the East Coast got it 3 hours ago.
Right.
Seriously, like they've been promoting it for a while that this is what was going to happen. We were going to have a special edition, an hour long of just Harriet. So I was like, okay, this is going to be like a TED Talk, you know, but back in the day. But just before we get into like dissecting this hour-long monologue, just in general, ladies, how do you feel? What did you think overall of this brilliant performance?
I think Aisha Hines did a beautiful job. Like I was watching it first of all, and I remember saying to myself, she can't be acting. Like this has to be her story because she did such a phenomenal job. Outside of that, getting to know Harriet on this level and seeing her in a new light than what I'm used to or what the history books have taught us or what the internet has been teaching us was very refreshing. It was also heavy though, because it was a lot to process, and yes, she was preaching at us, and I felt like she was ministering us, but there were a lot of truths in there. And there were points, when I know that we're going to get into, but there were points while she was speaking that reminded me of little black boys and girls that live in the hood today and their mentality.
For sure.
So a lot of that was heavy for me.
Yeah. For me, it was really powerful. And like I said, so I was at the same time looking things up about Harriet Tubman, and everything I was looking at was kind of going in order with what she was saying. So all the history that they put in that episode, I really admire that, and I'm thankful for that, because like you said, like what we were taught in school, history books, and if you go online, maybe all that information may or may not be there. I found a good site where it was, but you have to nowadays kind of force yourself to learn these things, and for it to be, an entertainment like that, and someone take have the courage to put it out there that way, I think is brilliant.
I mean, I had chills. There were moments where I literally just wanted to cry. I'm still feeling the weight of it, which is why, like, normally I'm like super hyped when we do Underground, but today I'm trying to contain where I am because I don't want to cry live on the air. I'm not doing it, y'all. But this episode was penned by Misha and Joe, who are the creators of the show. So just brilliant job to them. And
as always,
I mean, they're just incredible. And Misha, I have to read what Misha wrote. She said, "One morning I woke up and the thought hit me like a train. Harriet Tubman had whip marks on her back. This icon, this beacon of strength, the Moses of her people, had suffered the brutality of her people, and somehow I had never put those two images together. That's where this episode started in my head, and that's why it starts with Harriet bare in that corset."
And I'm happy that she woke up one morning and had that thought, because it was needed. When we hear of Harriet Tubman, we think of Underground Railroad, we think of all the greatness that she's done for the people, but we don't really see her as a slave.
Right.
We don't really see her getting beat. We don't really get the intimacy of the struggle that she actually had to endure. So that becomes really hard, you know what I mean? So to see her in that light, like that first image of her back was just like, oh yeah, she is was a slave. She wasn't always free. Like she isn't this, but like, you know what I mean? She got her start.
And seeing her vulnerability, it's like we always see her clothed, and we see that iconic picture of her just like posing, but this is her like semi-undressed, you know, trying to fix her hair like a black woman, thinking about her edges. Are they right? You know,
when
like,
she said that, I was like, girl, because before the show started, we were talking about our hair.
Edges, yes.
We were talking about being comfortable with our natural hair. She
Yes.
said that she was tasseling with her head because she felt shame. She was like, she couldn't have her hair look like this and walk into someone's establishment. So when it comes to natural hair and having blackness in you,
right,
you know what I mean? It's a struggle. Like, the natural hair era is still very new. We didn't always embrace our natural hair.
No.
We're still trying, and a lot of us are still breaking out of that. So that line was very relevant and resonated with millennials, I believe.
Right, yeah. And like for myself, like I stopped getting a perm years ago, maybe about 10 years now, and I thought that was me doing something, taking a stance or something, but I still straightened my hair. I may not have been perming it with chemicals, but I was still straightening it. You know what I mean? So it's like I didn't really get anything done with that. I just didn't perm it. You know what I mean? So it's like I still struggle with that too.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I talked about it today. I was like, how I'm feeling about the afro. I just want to give a special shout out to those who are in the live chat with us. Black Jones and Donna, thanks for checking in with us. Tell us, yes, what you think about the episode, what your thoughts were. So we hit the ground running with the episode's called Minty, because that's what they used to call her when she was a child.
Because her name was Armamita.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was
Armamita.
born Armamita Ross. Yes, and she starts off speaking about fear, what we know and what we believe, and that fear was the first thing that she know, the fear of the white man.
Yeah.
But she has a full audience of white people coming to see her. What are your thoughts about that? Because till this day, you know, when you're a prominent black entertainer, I want to just give a special RIP to Charlie Murphy, you know, huge black comedians, and you get to a certain level where you make so much money, no longer your own people can go see you. Now you have a room full of white folks coming to see your show. Kevin Hart, the people in the front row of his shows aren't us.
Even when we look around to where we start living, our neighbors don't look like us.
Right.
The people who drive the cars that we drive don't look like us. The people that are in the restaurants that we're eating at don't look like us. As soon as this episode started, the very first note that I took was, look at all these white people.
Right.
Because I mean, we knew that they were preparing us to have her speak, and we knew that a lot of the abolitionists and a lot of people were going, like Elizabeth, were going to watch her speak.
Yes.
But I didn't think that it would be a predominantly white room, which I feel like opened a lot of our eyes, because I think, and I know that we talked about this before, but we go blind so much to how many people were in cahoots with us, how many white people tried to help us. I think that we hear slavery, and it doesn't take away from slavery, and we know racism exists, and we automatically cancel out every white person, like, okay, you're racist, you know, you didn't help us. But that room was full of white people who wanted to help, whether they wanted to go to war or not, they still wanted to help.
Yeah, same thing with the Civil Rights Act. I mean, we can't do it alone.
Right.
When it's an all black, all white, all Jewish, when it's an all just marginalized movement, it's not going to move outside of your circle. In order for it to be a grand thing, it has to include everyone.
Right.
And that's what really created change. But she talks about the ignorance of captivity and the ignorance to liberty and not knowing about that. And now that it wasn't until she became free that she understood the scope of what slavery was. And then what I caught was that she heard Uncle Tom's Cabin. She didn't read it. It was read to her. And she was like, but this doesn't depict the real horror of it all.
Right.
I don't know. Again, I'm like, I must be not getting my facts straight, but I was like, I assumed that Harriet learned how to read somewhere along this journey. Did she always not know? I know she didn't know how to read at first, but I'm like, did that just stay? No one ever taught her?
Well, I still don't know if she didn't know how to read, because
I have to do my research.
she started working in the military. She was a nurse, and I'm pretty sure she had to read some kind of orders, and, you know, she worked, like, I'm pretty sure at one point she had to read something.
Right. So
I think she may have learned later down the line, but it wasn't a skill that was necessary in helping to free so many slaves, which is probably why we don't have the answer. So maybe someone in the chat room can kind of let us know. Do you know if Harriet ever learned to read or not? Because clearly we missed our history lesson.
Oh my goodness. And I like how she said, I know what you guys came here to hear, which is how I defied these odds and how I escaped hell, because slavery is like hell. But she's like, that's not exactly what I'm here to talk to you guys. She like flipped it. She's like, in order for you to understand my freedom, you have to understand my bondage. And she goes and talks about her childhood. Like you said, we don't know anything about her childhood in that regard. And so tell me what you guys thought about her story as a kid.
Before she went into her story, she opened up the floor with a certain essence about her.
Oh,
she was very vulnerable. She was very bare. She didn't hold back. She expressed her experiences very clearly to where all of my senses smelt, felt, thought, saw what she went through.
Right.
So the fact that, we talk about the room being predominantly white, we talk about her telling us between liberty and freedom and having ignorance, but she also stood up there and she said, you can imagine how I'm feeling on this stage looking at all of you. And the fact that at this point, she's freed about 50 people, she has power. She has power. She's free. She can do so much. And she still stood on the stage and said, I still feel some type of way that I'm speaking to you, that I'm in front of you, that you're in my room. So for her to still have some type of, not fear of the white man anymore, but she still has some type of fear, what I mean?
Or and just the fear of public speaking.
Right.
You know, like that was so awesome. Like, again, we see her always as this iconic of strength, but it's like, I usually just talk to the people that I'm on the road with, like talking to a whole audience, like it was like, whoa, this is like really scary.
The humility she had while she was speaking is what transpired into her telling us about her childhood.
Right. And also keep their attention while having that speech. And also, like, in a room full of white people, yes, they are abolitionists and they are there to help, but also the fact that she also demanded and commanded respect from them, so they were sitting there attentively and listening to, like, every word that she said. And that's powerful to be able to do that.
Right. Elayna, I love how you talked about how bondage attacks the senses. And she really, the writing is just so incredible, comparing sounds to the crack of the whip and the feel of breath and the taste of copper and just everything was just so, I was like, I didn't know how this was going to work. I'm like, an hour and 8 minutes.
Right. I still, even while watching it, I still thought that they were going to cut it somewhere and try to get the reactions of the people.
I really thought that they were going to be like flashbacks, like we would see the childhood, like it would be an actual, I was like, no, they're really just going to have her sit here and talk for an hour. But it worked.
It did work.
Because Aisha Hines is brilliant.
Donna in the chat room says, she loves how she took the novelty out of it and out of the movement and challenge everyone to their commitment. While she was giving us the background of her childhood, and even though the camera or the picture never cut to the scene where she was a kid and her master's wife had her sweeping and dusting everything, I see it very clearly.
Oh, yes.
Because of how it was described. And every time she slammed her hand on that desk,
my
and
goodness.
the audience, you saw them shake. Like you saw them feel the whips. And then we saw her scars in the beginning. So all of it was just like tying in at one particular moment. She challenged everyone, like, this is how hard it was. This is how hard it still is. Are you sure you want to do this? And if you're not sure, then you need to be changing your prayer.
Right.
For sure. That raw hide, I felt like I was getting hit with the raw hide. I was like,
yeah.
Don't hit that. It was just so powerful. She really is an incredible storyteller. Harriet and then Aisha Hines living and breathing the body of the spirit of this woman. But there's just so many quotes. I was like writing. I have like pages on pages of notes, which I know I can't. Too many notes, guys. I know I can't, but I feel like I was taking a master class. Like I'm an actor as well, and I think that it was just like, oh my God, oh, and she did that, and oh, it's like I'm gonna go back and watch it again. And the crazy thing is, people on Twitter were saying the same thing, that it was like their third or their fourth time watching it. They just since 8 o'clock have been glued to WGN America because it's just that powerful and it's such an incredible history lesson. But it's incredible how she talks about how the things that we experience and learn as a child and don't realize it's going to be useful. Like you go to school and you're like, oh, I'm never going to use this. So to a certain degree, slavery was her school. The things working at the big house that she didn't want to do, then learning things out in the swamp all was preparing her for her greater purpose.
And we still don't know how she felt when her dad had her out there learning about the trees. Like she mentions it.
Right.
She credits him for teaching her these things, but we don't know as a kid if she was like,
yeah.
Dad, do I really have to be? We don't know how she, and she like any other kid. Like, I really just want to play, or let me go watch Mama. Let me go in the house. Let me sneak some more sugar. I don't want to be learning about trees right now.
Right.
And now that tree is saving so many lives.
So many lives.
So many lives.
Her rebellion to not show pain. Listen, I am a clean canvas. I don't even have a tattoo because my wall for pain isn't that high. And the fact that she was like, I don't care how many times they beat me, I'm not going to give them the reaction they're expecting because that is my, in that time, in her ignorance, that was her form of freedom.
I related to that line so well because
go ahead, I'm sorry.
You can go.
No, I was just gonna say I feel like it definitely relates to today, and to there are so many situations where someone can antagonize you, or it may be a white person that can antagonize you, and that's what they want. They want you to show your hurt and your pain from the past. They want you to lash out and be angry at them, and it's like you don't give them that reason. You don't give them that satisfaction. If you have to walk away, be the bigger person. Be strong enough to walk away from the situation. Doesn't make you any less than. Doesn't make you a coward or soft or anything. Walk away.
That's interesting because she said that line and you just gave us that breakdown, but that's not necessarily how I saw it. Like she was talking about it in race, like, you know, she was beating her and she didn't want to give her the satisfaction.
Right.
However, I compared it and I related to it with the wall that I have in life. I have a wall when it comes to pain and when it comes to hurt, when it comes to disappointment. And when I do feel those emotions, I don't like to give people the satisfaction to know that you just hurt me. And that's not always healthy. That's not the right way to be. I won't say that. However, it is how I coast through life. And we saw it again with her when she had the incident with her husband. And I'm pretty sure, well, you know, when she had the incident with her husband, she gave us she dropped a lot of gems and she dropped a lot of knowledge. But without saying it, we saw her too not give him the satisfaction to see her hurt, to see her in pain. And I don't know if we can relate that to relationships that we've been in or disappointments with our parents or with siblings or with jobs, but I'm not going to allow you to see me broken because then you can use that against me. And like that's just what I took.
So like she said with that also, like he showed me that he could do without me, so that means I can do without him.
Oh, that's the story of my life,
right? So it's anything else.
And it all ties into her saying that, you know, we all have those moments in our lives, that thing that happens that breaks your life in two, and it's what happened before that and what happens after that. And for her, you know, it was a lot of things that led up to that. Of course, her getting struck in her head that allowed the spells that even cultivated her relationship with God. I mean, to me, this entire monologue was literally like prophecy, revelation, church, a sermon. Like, it was just what it means to have a personal relationship with your God and your Jesus. It was, my Lord, the fact that this is, I don't know if this was strategic that they did this episode during Resurrection Week and it's about to be Good Friday, but I literally was just like, I was literally feeling just overwhelmed by like what Spirit and God was speaking to me through this episode, because it's incredible how she's like, God is listening to me. Like, he actually hears my prayers. I mean,
you know what I loved? So you're saying that, and we're talking about prayers, and we're talking about God hearing her prayers. And she talks about how she changed her prayer over her master. She went from praying that he had to change a heart to praying that he died. Died. And everyone in the audience were so surprised. They were like, who? Right. And it was like, you want him to live? Like,
right.
Not that I wanted him to die either.
Right.
But you act like you haven't seen death. You haven't heard death. Like, it was such it was just shocking to you that she could pray for her master to die. Someone who's had the hand in her pain, had the hand in her sister's pain, had the hand in her mom's pain. You know what I mean? So for them to sit there and be like so dramatic over it, I was like, all right, you clearly you ain't been through much.
Right, exactly. But then that's the beauty of what kind of Christian she was, because she said after it actually happened, she's like, man, what I would do to bring that soul back.
Yeah.
The soul that tormented her, that beat her, that treated her so wrong, she still was like, I feel remorse about even praying that prayer. You know, so it's like, wow, like there's levels to it. And
let's give credit to the writers again for bringing forth a topic that we not only would not be able to get from any other show,
right,
but we wouldn't be able to talk about on AfterBuzz. And for being bold enough to call out hypocrites. So Harriet was speaking to us, and she was saying that there were rapists who were pastors and people who were beating on women. Like, she just went in on everybody,
right,
who was committing these crimes, killing people, raping people, hurting people, and then would go into the church house and say, oh, I'm doing this for God, or I'm doing this for religious reasons. So for the writers to call that out and to be bold enough to bring that forth through Harriet, it was beautiful. It was
epic, because there are so many people that argue, or not argue, but a lot of people that, and I respect it and I understand it. I respect everyone's creed, everyone's religious views, but there are a lot of folks that say, I don't understand why black people are Christians. They use the Bible against you, and that's the white man's religion. And there's like all this anger towards black people being Christians. And it's like, that ain't my Christianity, and that ain't my God. And I was like, girl, yes, that's exactly how I feel. Praise the Lord, hallelujah. And, it was just so beautiful, because it's one of those things where I was like, if I could just have everyone in the world see this episode. Like, I just want everyone on the planet to see this episode, because it doesn't matter what religion you come from. God is love. And our job is just to love on people. And unfortunately, they did use it against us, but it doesn't mean that that's what it was for. Because, look at her name, Black Moses, to free her people, and how she had visions of things because of prophecy from, she was just quoting scriptures. I was just like, this for every person that tells me I shouldn't be a black Christian. Here, watch Aisha Hines in Underground.
This is what's beautiful. She went into a place where I just clearly lost my thought. I was going.
Sorry.
And it's gone. It's gonna come back.
It'll come back.
I felt the same way that you felt, and I have a few friends, not many, on Facebook, that they're starting this different journey of religion or non-religion, and then they kind of want to, like you said, they just want to kind of beat it out of you or get it out of you, that mentality of like, well, Christianity shouldn't be our religion, it was used against us and things like that. And like, okay, it's a religion, but my relationship with God, that's between me and him. And for me personally, like, he showed up and shown out in my life. So if this is how I'm going to follow him, then this is how I'm going to follow him.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like you said, there are scriptures that will say that will go in our favor in the Bible. They just were able to, because we couldn't read at the time, because we couldn't decipher what was right and what was wrong, and notice what they were doing to manipulate us, to use that against us. They were still, like I just said, things that were in our favor. So I still stand behind, like I said, I love my God.
And speaking of following, what I loved, there was just so many quotes. She said, be intentional with your aim, because he will provide. I was like...
Then she came back and said, but you got to do the work.
But you got to do the work. I was like... And she was like, that's when she knew she had the aim to escape. And she was like, her first mistake was trying to convince anyone. And that's the thing, too. Like, I don't need to convince you to want to be free. I don't need you to convince you to want to love God or read the Bible or go to church. Like, it has to already be on the inside of you, that fire to want, to desire, to seek knowledge, to seek freedom. That fire that she was talking about, I just thought about Noah, because Noah has that fire. And I was like, the fact that her brothers convinced her to turn around, I never knew that. That's another piece of history that I didn't know, that the first time she ran, she turned around. You always hear like, oh, she ran and she made it to Canada.
Yeah.
That's what I got my thought back. So you were saying how, she was a black Moses because she led her people to freedom, like Moses did for his people. And I never realized that that's why we called her Moses. Like, I put the correlation together, but I did it until today, because she had so many names, right?
Yes.
And just like I learned from this episode that she's called Harriet in honor of her mom.
Right.
Like, that wasn't her name growing up. That wasn't a name that someone else gave her. She started calling herself Harriet to be close, to have that sense of kinship, you know what I mean? Especially traveling back and forth and being apart, and her parents were older. So the fact that we received so much knowledge, like so much knowledge,
gems.
Even with her opening up and talking about her sisters, like, anytime you talk about family, or she explains how she was a kid and she was able to relate to her mom's grief, I can now feel it. Because even if it's a stranger, I empathize and I can sympathize for whatever it is that you're going through. So imagining a child watching her elder sisters being raped or being taken away or being sold and disappearing and never coming back. Now you have to piece the things together and you're forced to grow up. And I think that this episode, if I can tie it into one thing, this episode was just full of wisdom. It was like talking to your elder grandmother who just started giving you tools for life, tools to get through, things to work through. Like, it was phenomenal.
Do we have anyone in the live chat? Did they answer our question?
They didn't. No one knows.
Actually,
I think I see it.
Yeah, shout out to Donna. She said PBS shares on one occasion that Harriet overheard some men reading her wanted poster, which stated that she was illiterate. She promptly pulled out a book and pretended to be reading it.
So she didn't know how to read.
She didn't know how to read. So she pulled out a book. So then if they were looking for her, they'd be like, oh, it's not her because the real Harriet can't read.
Right.
Ah, see, she was a wise, tricky one, that one.
I can relate with Black Jones in the chat room. He says, all the quotes had me, especially the one referring to Abraham and God sacrificing their son. So when Harriet brought up Captain John Brown, and how he had a heart for war and he was willing to sacrifice his son for Black people, basically.
And she's like, no white man.
Yeah. and she was like, no one that I know would do that except for Abraham and God. And so when you know the stories, you're just like, aha, like, you know what I mean? It hits you and you're just like, you're right. Because even learning Abraham's story, it was really hard for me to put myself in his shoes and to imagine or try to even think about sacrificing Isaac. So to know that Captain Brown, we don't know him and we saw the argument between the people about him, but to know that he had the heart to sacrifice his son was just like, okay.
Yeah, that was really dope.
It was deep.
Super, super dope. How do you think about that imagery? I don't know about you ladies, but the imagery it gave me when she was like choked up and talking about actually crossing the state line and getting into Pennsylvania and finally hitting freedom, but that there was no one there to welcome her. It's like, we're not in those times, so I can't imagine it in that regard, but I think about the things that we hope for and pray for in our individual lives, and then I think about, man, if I finally accomplish everything I've ever wanted and I get all the things I wanted, but I'm alone at the top, you know, how worth it is it? And I think that moment, that imagery that I'm seeing is like, that's why she went back, because it's like, that isn't home. And what is a home without the people you love? Like, what's the point of having a mansion with 8 rooms with no one to share it with? Like, I don't want that.
And she said that to us. She said that sometimes we want certain things and we get those things just to realize that it's not what we need. She literally said that. And when she said that, I'm starting to think about all the things that I've wanted that I did receive that didn't change any of my circumstances.
Right. She's like, I looked at myself. Do I look the same?
Right. That it didn't change anything. I got what I wanted. Now what? It wasn't what I needed. So it wasn't going to evoke true purpose out of me. It wasn't going to launch me into my destiny.
Right.
That was too much. It's just so much for me.
It's so much. Like, I'm literally gonna go home and meditate and pray on the word I just got. It's like, and she talked about her pattern, like her strategic, how she would work, then plan, and then wait. Work, plan, wait. And she talked about that December, January, February were the easiest months to like get out and escape. And I just want to give a special shout out to Kalisha Graves, who usually hangs out with us in the live chat, but she writes for blackfilm.com and she always does like the recaps, and she's just full of so much knowledge. And so her first road to going to save her folks was in December of 1850. So it's like, she just knew, but unfortunately the Fugitive Slave Act came into play in 1850. So it changed the game and how she was going to do everything. But I really loved how she talked about how she was afraid. Yeah. Like, it was like, oh, I thought I was going to be able to do it this way, and now I got to actually go there, which is like interesting, because it's like what happened with Noah and Rosalie, because Noah's like, wait, you want to go back to Macon? You know, so can't wait till next week. It's gonna go down. It's gonna go crazy. What are we saying?
We're just talking. They're jumping ahead. They're jumping ahead to what our predictions will be. Amelia, I believe it is. I definitely see your comment, and I was gonna tie that into my prediction, so I feel like you just kind of snuck into my brain and stole my thoughts. She basically says that's why Rosalie is going back to Macon, even though she's pregnant with Noah and still wanted her family.
Right.
And I think that just speaks to everyone, though, except for Noah, because until he reconnected with Rosalie, everyone wants to be with their family. They want to be reconnected. They want that love that was pulled away from them, that was destroyed from them while they were kids. And that's what they're fighting for. And we know that was the initial plan for Harriet, and then we learned that after her heartbreak it was necessary. Her husband cheating on her was necessary because that's what launched her into saving so many people. And I think that in itself was a word for us, because a lot of times we go through like heartbreaks and we go through disastrous situations and we don't understand it, not realizing that they're working for our good.
Right.
When she said you can endure anything when you have a purpose, and the Lord had a reason for that betrayal, because I was thinking too small. When I tell you, my eyes literally welled up, because like, Lord, it's like you think you want this, or you think you need this, or you think this is where you're going and this is the plan, and it's like you're thinking too small.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about yourself and your own family. Like, think about other people. And she had the means to help other people. Right. And then she was like, in that moment where she could have saved one soul because of that betrayal, she saved 11 people.
11.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, that one trip, two things happened there. The betrayal of her husband, and then also the Freedom Act, the slave... What is
Fugitive
Slave Act, yes. And I wrote it down. I'm like, where is it? The Fugitive Slave Act, that happened as well. So like she said, those 11 souls, she took them all the way to Canada. But two things there. She had that fire from that, and then that perseverance. Like, you maybe try to stop us, but I'm still going to find a way around it. I'm still going to find a way to get to my version of my promised land.
She took them to Canada, then went back to the South. I be tired when I just take a 3-hour flight. Like, you know.
She said, I'm married to the cause now. Yeah. I was like,
right?
Oh, girl.
Get it.
It was crazy. So she mentioned something, and I don't remember exactly what she was talking about. I know around the time she said Black folks know pain, and we know that because of all that we've endured. But she also said that there's no such thing as triumph under slavery. And then later she goes in to say, when she was talking about Captain John Brown, that violence with no cause is brutality.
Right.
So when she mentioned those things, it clearly launched me until today, 2017, 2016, and all that's been happening. And although slavery doesn't exist anymore, there is still racism, and there is still oppression, and all things relating to race. But then when she said violence with no cause is brutality, I thought about all the brutality that's been happening.
Right.
Like, it has no cause. It's coming from a hateful place. It's coming from a place that, you know, that's not love. So for her to say that, and we know that this was in the 1800s, and for it to be relevant today, it's just like, okay, we know that a lot has changed, and we know that we're blessed, and we made a lot of progressions, but what's really changed?
Right.
And that's scary.
And to piggyback off of that, she also said, like, a country built on bodies will always need more for the slaughter.
Ooh.
And that goes into that too.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
My God. It's interesting because her meeting with John Brown in general, for her, was a revelation of prophecy, of her vision. And he comes at the door. She describes him like this white man with the long beard. And I'm thinking, Jesus? Not like literally, but in the sense of the way they portray him to be, right, in pictures, that he's this white man. But as soon as she mentions John Brown, everyone goes a roar. And then now, for almost the first time, we're hearing people actually talk in the audience and almost get into an argument. But then Elizabeth tells everyone to shut it all the way down.
Elizabeth was in awe. Elizabeth was in awe of Harry, and so are you, because you're taking this red lipstick.
In the moment, I was just like,
I'm
all
over your face because Franceli is so into this conversation.
I can't.
So guys, don't tease her in the comments for the vicious everywhere. So Tan has a question for us. She says, what if you make it to where you want to be, but you never had family that cared to help you get to your potential? And I think it depends. If we're talking during that time, you may have not had family, but you had somebody that cared for you.
Yeah, Noah had no family.
Or, you know what I mean? You have someone, whether it's a friend or a friend's friend, you kind of have someone that you talk to or someone that you confide in. And not all of us do. Some of us just have ourselves. And that's okay, because you have yourself, you make it out for yourself. But when you get there, you still have to reflect and figure out, why am I doing this? What am I going to do? Because no one wants to live alone. So do you then make a family with someone new? That could be you might not have to go back for anyone else. Maybe you make family with someone in your community, and then you guys save people going back.
Or maybe like your destiny is to be that for someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe you come along and you see someone that doesn't have that, and you know what it's like to not have that. You know what it's like to go through and have your accomplishments and not be able to share that with someone. And then you see someone along the way going through the same thing, then maybe it's your job now to kind of take them in. Yeah, because it works like that sometimes too.
Yeah, shout outs to Amelia, who says Harriet said that her family became those who she led to freedom.
Right.
You create a new family. Some people are like that too. Like even here in LA, folks that move from their small towns and they come here and they have no one, and they might join a church, and the church community and the people there become their new family, or the people that are into the same thing you're into, your improv troupe, whatever it is, but you find a new family where you go, because sometimes people don't support the movement that you're going to.
Amelia just referenced Harriet's family being everyone she led to freedom, and it made me immediately think of Jesus in the Bible. Like when his actual family came to see him, he was like, that's not my family. Everyone is my family. Like not just the people that I'm blood to, but everyone that I'm speaking to, everyone that I'm bringing on this journey. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess it's just heart. It's heart. Whoever's in your heart is your family.
Well, Harriet says, my story ain't over, and it ain't mine. Like, she's talking about war. She's trying to convince, not necessarily convince, but I think she's trying to show people that, hey guys, this war thing might be the only option we have left, because I am doing the Lord's work, but the world isn't changing. And everyone in this room believes the world needs to change, but there's not a lot of people in that room.
Right.
And she's like, and we're all sitting here having conversations about it when we should be out there changing it. And so she's like, we're abolitionists, but we haven't abolished nothing. Like it was just, the ending was just, it just kept growing. Like I literally was just like, what? Oh, like she just hit every nail on the head. And it was just like, as much as war is something you don't necessarily want to do, at this point, she says, what other option do we have?
And that's the truth in it, though, because she talks about what option do we have next. She also talks about how she just wanted to walk away. Yeah. How she didn't want to free anybody else. How she, she wants to live this long life and stop living this life on the run and this life underground. So we see a lot of conflict toward the end. We see a lot of truths toward the end, and it's needed, because I think that a lot of times we get carried away and we feel like we can't do anything because we're not Harriet Tubman. Right. Or Harriet Tubman had it so easy because it was in the 1800s and she was so strong, and all of that is an excuse because she battled with a lot of the same things that I feel like we think about from time to time. Sometimes when you are the pioneer, you want to give up. Yeah. I don't want to do this anymore. It's time for me. And it's okay to admit that. You know what I mean? So the fact that she was very humble. She was so humble, so relatable, so open. And that in a room full of strangers, in a room full of people that looked like the men she feared.
It was magical.
Yeah.
It was pretty magical. And folks in the chat are talking about like the camera and like towards the end, how they had her looking right at the camera. Shout outs to Anthony Hemingway, who directed this episode. But Kalisha Graves, who does the recap, said something very beautiful about how she feels that Harriet from the grave was talking to our era. Yes. And peering into our world from the 19th century, saying, He, God, will provide, but you got to do your part. You got to find what it means for you to be a soldier. Beat back those that are trying to kill everything good and right in the world and call making it great again. We can't afford to be just citizens in a time of war. That would be surrender. That would be giving up our future and our souls. Ain't nobody get to sit this one out. You hear me? You hear me?
Fade to Black. I had so many chills in that moment.
Nobody gets to sit this one out.
She basically was calling us to action.
She was calling all of us out. Like in 2017, are you just sitting around and complaining? Twitter fingers are getting hot. What are you really doing? Are you just having conversations, or are you getting up and gonna do something about what's happening that you're angry about? Whew. As you can see, I've gotten really excited.
This one literally just, it's hard because it hasn't sunk yet, right? We've gone through almost the entire episode, but it still hasn't sunk. And I think that what's going to be interesting is we got a sneak peek of what's going to happen next week. And we're going to be so on fire from next week, but we're still going to have these words that Harriet had resonating in us. Right.
Well, guys, we have to wrap up pretty soon. What are your predictions for next week?
And now, your AfterBuzz TV
predictions for next week.
Yeah.
Well, I think last week I did mention that them finally going back to Macon. So we see that that is going to happen now, sooner than later.
Yes.
Okay, I just started that. I really don't have a prediction. I'm just happy that they're going back to Macon.
She's like, they're going to Macon.
That's all I got.
It's going to get hot. And while they're back home, I predict that Noah is going to figure out that Rosalie is pregnant. And he's going to flip out. He's going to be like, you basically tricked me to get here because you know I wouldn't let your butt come here like that. So even though it's going to be spicy and a lot of violence and everything's going to happen, I predict somewhere they're going to have that conflict.
Well, Kato with no eyebrows.
Oh, goodness.
We're going to see what that... We're going to see what... No, that's not a prediction. I'm just saying we're going to see what that really looks like. Yeah. Of course, I predict that Kato is going to surprise us all. I think he has so many layers, and we've seen that in the last couple episodes. I think he's really going to do some things that we're not going to see coming. Yeah. So I'm just interested to see that storyline.
I'm actually proud of him right now. Before I know what's happening, I'm proud of him. Right. For what he's about to do.
Yeah. Right. Like I said, I'm starting to open up to him now.
Oh, so we're Team Kato?
No.
I'm becoming Team Kato.
She's not. She's not.
Like I said, I'm just excited about next week to see like everything kind of go down. So I think I'm just want a fresh mind to just kind of see like how everything is going to play out.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you guys for tuning in with us and joining us here at the after show. I want to take this time to thank God for Harriet Tubman's life and who she was. May her spirit and her legacy live on forever. And may people be able to use this episode to teach people about who she was. Harriet made 19 trips to the South and freed over 300 enslaved people. I am Franceli Chapman. You can hang out with me at All Things Celly Hangout.
And I'll be on Twitter still in all at hey_it's_lay.
And you guys can catch me on Instagram and on Twitter at Lynneisha_33.
Thank you guys. We'll be back next week. Bye. It's been real.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.